Who's there? Oh, it's you. Jeepers, doesn't anyone knock anymore? Y'all's like, gee, come on in, guys. I'm sure the ghost host won't mind if we just let ourselves in. It's not like he has anything else to do but cater to us. Geez, what's next? You gonna want me to order you a pizza or something? Let's not beat around the bush. I know the only reason you stopped by. Oh, fine. I mean, you're here now. We might as well get on with it. First up is a story from an OP that had a pretty unique experience as a kid. It's called, When I Was a Kid, I Was Pulled into a Dark Void Under My Bed.
I know my memory isn't reliable, but part of this story involves my dad, and he has confirmed his side, so here it goes. When I was maybe 7 or 8, I was in my bedroom standing beside my bed playing with my toys. It was a single bed that was pretty high off the ground, high enough that my sister and I were able to hide underneath it, and toys could fit under there, but an adult wouldn't. I was setting up a scene between Bratz and the Beanie Babies when something underneath it caught my attention. I very distinctly remember something grabbing my ankles and pulling me off my feet. I remember hitting the carpet and being dragged under the bed into a pitch blackness, but it felt like being pulled off a cliff into a massive empty pool of black. The next thing I remember, I'm standing in my bedroom yelling at my dad that pulling me under the bed wasn't funny, and I weirdly remember that it felt like I woke up in the middle of the sentence. He obviously asked me what I was going on about and very confusedly had to explain that it wasn't him and decided I must have fallen asleep and dreamt it. According to my dad, he heard me screaming and came upstairs to see what was wrong, came into my bedroom and found me standing in the middle of my bedroom freaking out at him for pulling me under the bed. My dad was a pretty typical dad joke humor kinda guy. He'd jump out at us from behind doors and poke us during scary parts of movies and pick us up and carry us around by our ankles. So I guess in my kid brain it made sense. I thought it was him. I don't remember what else happened that night. I'm pretty sure I slept in my mum's bed cause I was so freaked out, but that's really it.
Crud, that must have been a horrible experience. Maybe whatever it was just wasn't a fan of Beanie Babies. Next, we got one from someone that has been having numerous experiences. It's called My Ongoing Experiences.
A few years ago, I randomly woke up at 3 a.m. to a man sitting in the corner of my room next to my bed. It was really weird, and I have never experienced anything like it. I could so vividly see his face and his body just sitting there. I just quickly rolled over, turned my light on, and went back to sleep. A few days later, I went to sleep, and I woke up to what felt like being slapped in the face. And when I opened my eyes, there was nothing. I kept seeing shadows around my house, and my siblings have heard noises coming from upstairs. Years have gone by, and little things happen, but not until I was living on my own in college. Last year, I was on the phone, and I saw a black figure walk past my room, quickly turn around and walk back away. I thought it was my roommate, but it turns out she was upstairs the whole time, and no one else was home. We quickly checked all of the Ring footage, every area of the house, and there was nothing. So the weirdest thing is I heard the person run up the stairs and I was yelling at them to come back, thinking it was my roommate, and got no response. For weeks prior to the occurring, I had been having intense nightmares every time I closed my eyes. I kind of just thought I was freaking out until I started having sleep paralysis and demons in my bedroom. Obviously it was in my dreams, but it always felt realistic. And all of my roommates as well would be in my dreams, except they'd be possessed and treating me like nothing was going on, telling me to go back to sleep only for the dream to continue, and I would get tormented even more. In some of these dreams, I would be getting thrown around and tormented by demons and ghost dark figures in my room. My house was an old college house that had been around for decades, and according to my research, it was an old frat house that someone had unalived in. It was the craziest thing. You would feel the darkness and bad vibes around the house, like the basement had really dark corners and crevices, as well as the attic. Eventually, I saged my room and around the house, and the nightmares subsided for a little bit. But it still freaks me out, and I often have sleep paralysis to this day with really scary dreams and paralysis experiences on a normal basis. Not really sure what's going on.
Well, good call on using the sage in your room. I mean, that stuff smells like old man farts to us. Next up, we have one that has some pretty bizarre experiences at her boyfriend's place. She calls it, "Have I got an attachment?" or just a friend.
I recently moved into my boyfriend's house with him. Every night when I tried to sleep in his bedroom, I had trouble breathing, like something was pressing on my chest. I had some sort of visions every time I closed my eyes, nightmarish things that would appear for a second and then change to something else, and I kept waking up with random bruises almost every morning. One night, I went to sit outside on the grass to get some fresh air, around 1:30 a.m. My boyfriend's car was close to where I was sitting. Suddenly, the hazards started going off. His hazard button is broken. It only works if you hold the button in. We left it for about 2 minutes, then the lights started flashing irregularly, like something was playing with the button, and my boyfriend said he saw a hand move near it. We got up and walked over to the car, and as soon as we got within about 5 meters of it, the lights stopped. He opened the door and checked that the button was still not working, which it wasn't, plus we live half an hour from the closest town, so there's no way it was a person. Later the same night, we were standing in the kitchen either side of the bench, and I felt something touch my back, almost like nails gently grazing down it. I went to do something, and my boyfriend moved to where I was standing when it happened and felt the same thing. We moved the bed into a different room, and the breathing difficulty, bruises, and visions have stopped, but still anytime I go into the old room at night, and sometimes during the day, I see things, have the visions, feel something that isn't there touching me, and have the difficulty breathing. My boyfriend said he often sees something in the wardrobe, which is where I feel the energy is coming from. We slept in there again a couple nights ago, and I had all the same things as before, as well as something touching my arm and my leg when I had them out of the blanket. I also had a dream about a ghost that night. In the dream, I talked to the ghost and got a name. Though it was a very unique one, and I don't remember it now. I think that may have been related. Last night when I was in the shower, the light was flicking on and off, not flickering, turning off and on again quickly, which, at first, I thought may just be the power, as we're on solar, but it kept going constantly until I asked my boyfriend to come in with me, when it stopped completely. Today, I was in the bedroom, standing to look at the door. There was a strong wind coming in through the window, and the door, which opens inwards, the wind through the window usually slams it shut, suddenly opened as if someone pushed it open. I could see straight down the hallway. There were no dogs or people near. I have not had any experiences, at least that I've noticed, outside of the property. My boyfriend originally said that they believe there's a ghost living in their garage, and it comes into the house sometimes. He also said that he and his mother have some family who visit them somewhat often, my BF's aunt and brother, and that the brother is very mischievous. Our current theory is that it may be him. I am going to try to talk to whoever it is soon, but I have no equipment whatsoever. If anyone has any advice or anything, that would be awesome.
Well, I don't think it's a friend. I mean, what kind of friend would leave bruises on you? Well, I think we have just enough time for one more story. It's from a father who has a daughter that has a few special friends. And they are the children in the walls.
I always thought Amira's habit of whispering to her dolls was endearing, a charming quirk of a 6-year-old's imagination. I catch snippets of her one-sided conversations as I passed her room at night, her soft voice barely audible over the creak of the old floorboards. It became part of the house's ambience, like the hum of the refrigerator or the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. But now, I'd give anything to unhear those whispers. It started innocently enough. One night, as I tucked her into bed, I teased her about her secretive chats. "Who are you talking to, sweetheart?" "Your dolls?" I asked, smoothing her hair back. She shook her head, her little hands clutching the worn fabric of her favorite stuffed rabbit. No, Daddy. The children who live in the walls. I laughed, assuming it was just another product of her active imagination. Oh, the children in the walls. Do they have names? She nodded solemnly, her big brown eyes meeting mine. Yes, they're lonely. They just want to play. Her seriousness caught me off guard, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Well, tell them it's bedtime, I said, kissing her forehead. Good night, princess. Good night, Daddy, she replied, her gaze lingering on the corner of the room where her dollhouse stood. Over the next few weeks, her whispers grew more frequent and, disturbingly, more specific. One morning, as I packed her lunch, she announced, the children's names are Lily, Jacob, and Samira. I froze mid-sandwich. Where did you hear those names, Amira? She shrugged. They told me. Something about the way she said it sent a chill down my spine. That night, after she'd fallen asleep, I decided to do some digging. A quick internet search revealed that Lily Martin, Jacob Torres, and Samira Khalid were all children who had gone missing from our town over the past decade. My chest tightened as I stared at their smiling faces on the screen. What were the odds? The next day, I casually asked Amira about the children. Do they say anything else? I tried to keep my voice light, but my pulse raced. She nodded, her tiny fingers braiding her doll's hair. They're sad. They don't like being alone. They said you should help them. Help them? My voice cracked. She looked up at me, her expression eerily calm. They said they can show you where they are. But you have to listen. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house, every groan of the walls, felt like a cry for attention. I began hearing faint scratches, too soft to be mice but too irregular to ignore. At one point, I swore I heard a whisper, barely distinguishable but undeniably there. The following evening, I tried to confront Amira. Sweetheart, I need to know where you heard those names. Did someone at school tell you about them? She frowned, as though confused by my question. I told you, Daddy. They live here. They said you don't believe me, but you will. Her words stayed with me as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Around midnight, I heard her voice. Not the usual playful whispers, but a low, steady murmur. I crept to her room and found her sitting upright in bed, her eyes closed, her lips moving rapidly. Amira, I whispered, stepping closer. She didn't respond. When I shook her gently, her eyes snapped open. They're ready now, she said, her voice flat. They'll show you. Before I could respond, she pointed to the wall beside her bed. Here, she said. Listen. Against my better judgment, I pressed my ear to the cold plaster. At first, I heard nothing but my own breathing. Then, faintly, a child's laughter. It was distant, almost imperceptible, but it was there. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. Amira simply smiled and lay down, pulling the blanket up to her chin. Good night, Daddy. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I decided we needed help. But as I reached for my phone, I noticed something on the wall by her bed, a tiny handprint, too small to be Amira's, smeared in what looked like dust. I called a contractor to examine the walls. As he knocked and prodded, a hollow sound emerged near Amira's bed. When he cut into the plaster, a small sealed cavity was revealed. Inside were 3 decayed children's toys and a handwritten note. We are here. Don't leave us alone. The contractor left in a hurry, visibly shaken. I bricked up the wall myself that same evening, desperate to put an end to whatever nightmare had unfolded in my home. Amira cried as I sealed it, begging me to stop. They'll be so mad, Daddy, she screamed, her voice raw with panic. That night, I heard its scratches louder than before, coming from inside the wall. Amira's whispers returned, but now she wasn't alone. There were other voices, soft and pleading, joining hers. I left the house with Amira the next morning. We never went back. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear faint whispers in my dreams, and I'm haunted by a single question. What would have happened if I'd listened?
Oh my dude, did you stop to think it might have been a crime scene? I mean, you found toys and a note in a sealed wall. If you kept digging, you may have discovered that that wasn't the only things in the wall. It very well could have been the final resting place of Lily Martin, Jacob Torres, and Samira Khalid. But I guess, now we will never know. There, you happy now? Oh goody. Then maybe we all can get some sleep. But before you leave, could you do me a little favor? Could you please hit like, subscribe, and share this video? It'll really help us keep the ghosts at bay. And, of course, if any of you have a story to share, or have anything you'd like to tell me at all, then by all means drop me a line in the comments. But I do want to thank you for stopping by, and I hope the stories we told won't be giving you too many bad dreams. But if they do, then maybe you shouldn't run from them. After all, sometimes it's better to embrace your nightmares.